Welcome back. It's 20 after 4, the second hour of today on this Wednesday. The South African Municipal Workers Union wants a financial expert to be present at its meeting with the City of Tshwane before the Bargaining Council. In fact, the aim is to analyze the city's financials and prove that it can pay an increase to the workers. Now, the city is insisting that it simply cannot afford to raise salaries. The Tshwane Strike has been going on for 5 weeks now. To discuss this further, we are joined by conflict resolution specialist Andre Vlok. A warm welcome to you, Andre. When we are at this juncture that would seem like an impasse, how do you normally advise the parties involved?
Good afternoon. As much as we don't want to reach this impasse, as much as we don't want to put everyone involved through it, this type of impasse, this type of wall that parties hit in conflict can sometimes also lead to resolution. That desperation, that nowhere else to go, sometimes forces them to become more creative, to become more directed at resolution and not just at scoring points, political and otherwise. So I'm trying to point out the silver lining to this dark cloud.
Thank you for that, Andre. And obviously, this conflict is one that's been going on for, in the history of South Africa. Employers have always been aggrieved with employees, and which then results in a strike action, protest action that we are seeing right now. You are then brought in to try and resolve the conflict. Where do you start?
I think it's crucial that we see two things. One, that, as much as what we see on our screens amount to a city versus SAMWU and employees conflict, it's limiting, and it's not helpful to just focus on that. Obviously, these issues, these conflicts, these events must be dealt with, but it's important from a conflict management, from a conflict transformation perspective. And management, conflict management isn't the goal here. We would need to, at some stage, transform this conflict. But we need to see the conflict for itself and as a primary level, and then at secondary level. And this is what makes this such a classic and it's such an illustrative example for the rest of the country. This plays into the rest of South Africa's problems. At one level, yes, it's a municipal strike with everything we see. At another level, it most certainly involves some of South Africa's very serious, very complex, unresolved conflicts, and our leaders should take notes here.
So, Andre, when we talk about the suggestions that would come from you as a conflict resolution specialist, how do you then advise both parties? In this instance, let's talk about in the context of SAMWU and the City of Tshwane.
Okay. I think that so far, again, we need to break it down into two steps. Conflict research and practice globally. In Africa, we have a lot of examples. You cannot and should not negotiate in a situation where chaos is the order of the day. That is bad business, it's bad conflict management, and it is going to blow up at some stage. It's sort of conflict confinement more than conflict management. The city needs to, and I see they seem to refer the matter to national police. Before further negotiations take place, I really think that there needs to be more stability. And in that regard, I fully support the city's efforts so far. They've been doing well. And there's often in South Africa, we argue that with this type of chaos, that we should negotiate through it if possible. That is simply not healthy. And we can already see in some of these negotiations and some of the statements that people have been making in some of the issues before the Bargaining Council, we can already see the seeds of this conflict blowing up again. So that first step is to create stability. And then a second step would be, here things get a lot more specific. The city, for example, needs to start dealing with the causes of this conflict and not just the symptoms. We see it in the Western Cape taxi conflict. We see it countrywide on a nearly daily basis, where our political leaders continue to deal with these conflicts, the symptoms of them, and they never, other than lip service, they never really get to the causes of these conflicts. And that is why it's cyclical, and that is why it repeats itself, and that is why whatever in the next few days, if we resolve this one in Tshwane, is going to happen again and again and again. That is not conflict management. That is bad business, and it's bad conflict management. The city also needs to start looking at a few specific issues. They need to appoint a specified specialist team of conflict people, people trained in this. It's unfair to expect this level of a complex conflict for people trained in other areas to continuously deal with it over a number of weeks. We see the mistakes being made. We see the missed opportunities. We see the cycles, the causes for future conflict being laid in attempts at resolving this, and that the city can certainly do better. I also see that the parties at this table, and this takes us back to the point where this is about more than just the SAMWU strike. Not all the parties that should be at this table are already there. And this is a missed opportunity. There are other people we're already seeing in public, in the media. We're seeing people are frustrated. This is, yes, it's a municipal strike, but people are also complaining about electricity, about service delivery. And in our national context, those issues are going to create problems, and there's no point in trying to resolve things if the backdrop remains, if the larger conflicts remain. Then it becomes putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound, and it's not going to work. And so in one sentence, what the city needs to do is take a far wider view. Deal with the issues, of course, of the SAMWU strike, but there are wider levers at play, and those, for once, they need to start dealing with effectively.
Andre, thank you for that elaborate analogy as well. Treat the actual wound, do not just put a band-aid on it. Andre Vlok is a conflict resolution specialist, just giving and weighing in on the SAMWU strike. Obviously, residents in Tshwane at the moment having to fend for themselves, refuse not being collected, etc. We're going to take a quick